Alright guys, well we're playing with a couple of different cameras here. I apologize. I had shot a whole bunch of video yesterday that showed a bunch of machining for the Quorn, for the grown-up Quorn, and whatever mistakes I'd made setting up the camera, and I'm sure it was me rather than the camera, although I'll blame the camera, it was so far out of focus that it was not usable. So hopefully we've got a little bit of redundancy. Hopefully I have made that better than what it was. So made some adjustments on the camera, done a little investigating. So anyway, let's get on with this. Working on the Workhead assembly and the tilting bracket for the grown-up Quorn tool and cutter grinder. And this is the stage that I have it to right now. Now, I'll kind of go over what I did just so you've got an idea. The first thing I did was I had the Workhead base set up in the mill, and I just indexed it up this way in the mill. So grabbed it on these two sides of the vise, leveled it up as best I could here, and used that as my reference point. So what I did is I decked off this, located my hole here for the pivot assembly and drilled it, cut down my little step here. Then I went back and machined off the top of this boss in that setting and machined off the top of the tilting bracket assembly for there. So that's where I took it to that point in time. I'm watching pretty close to make sure I don't have interference between this cotter and this cotter on the tilting assembly, because as they said here, why they're awful close, and I've relieved a lot here. So where I'm at right now is I've got it set to this point in time. After I did that, I set up the tilting bracket with this side had already been sanded down, and I just rough sanded it smooth, and that was fine for a reference. Set it back up in the mill using that as a reference, and decked off this and this boss. So where I'm at right now, and I've just manually shortened up the end of this so it will clear in our pivot. Now when I set this up, there's just barely room to get 30 degrees on both sides of this tilting bracket and on the scale. So I've got a way around that anyway. That's not an issue at all, but that's something that I did want to check before I got too far. So tilting bracket setting proud by about 3/8 of an inch. What I'm going to do is set the tilting bracket back up in the mill, and this is where we're at for the top. We've got a full boss here, and I'm going to deck this down on the back side to where my tilting bracket sets right into the cutout for the gauge. And I ran my boring head to get this radius. So while I had it set up here too, I did that radius there. So where we're at now is I'm going to go back and use this as my reference point, as my flat reference, and just machine this down just under 3/8 of an inch. This is going to be a cut and fit. So, you know, even though I've scaled up the prints for it and everything, this is still cut and fit. Everything's going to have to match. So we'll start decking this side down, which is going to interfere with this boss. Once I get that done, why, we'll make sure we've got enough clearance on the top side of this to get our hole down through there. And then once we get to that point, then we can go ahead and at least initially drill that hole and probably countersink it, and we can cut our radius here, which on the original prints for the original Quorn is 1.5 inch radius. On the grown-up, it's going to be a 2-inch radius, or just over a 2-inch radius. We're going to cut a 2-inch radius, and then we'll do a cut and fit from there. So that's where we're at with it right now. And I guess that's what I've got. When I get back to the Workhead assembly, once I make sure we've got clearances enough for everything, I still want to deck off the back because I've got a lot of material here. We don't need that much, and we'll square up this back to the front. Once I get that far, why, then we'll probably set up an angle plate, mount off of our reference surfaces here, which then they should both be the same thickness, so I can mount them probably on an angle plate, and then we'll bore our hole down through the center. Now I will offset my bushing towards the back just a little bit, and I've left enough material and enough room for that with this front reference so that this is directly in line on our center line here. One of my concerns was that this bore here needed to be on the same center line as our front bar. When I go back and look at the prints, that's not the case at all. There's no set distance for this hole to be offset from this that I found anyway, so it's not a critical dimension, which that kind of concerned me a little bit. I thought it might be, and I thought I was going to really run into some interference problems there, but it's not a set reference distance, and if it is, it's just going to be off our center hole from here to the back. I don't think it's that critical. So that's where we're at. This tilting bracket, once we get everything else lined out and make sure we've got enough space, this will get bored for a cone to tighten it on, and this will get bored for a cone on this side. So when it tightens down with a ball handle, why it wedges in there and spreads and does that. There's a pin that retains the alignment on the front bushing. The back one, or the back cone, is built into the stud that goes through to mount this on. So those are all self-aligning there. So we'll see how much of that we can get done today. Anyway, part of the thing we're doing is just playing with camera settings. You know, I'm looking at 2 different camera screens here. One of them is way blown out. It's kind of what I'm using as a backup, so hopefully I won't need it. And if it is, we'll make some adjustments accordingly. So leave your comments on camera settings down below. We'll do what we can to get better as we go along here. So anyway, I'm going to move over to the milling machine and see what we can get done. All right, well, as I look at this, there's always a possibility that this may just be a disaster, and I may have to go back, completely revise my patterns a little bit too. But we're going to go on the assumption that this is going to work all right. Okay, well, I'm going to stop right there because that's a lot off of that boss. According to my measurements, that's only a 1/4 inch there, just under a 1/4 inch. I think it needs to go to 3/8 of an inch, but it sets in there fairly well. It's fairly stable, so I think we'll leave it right there for now. I'm going to go ahead and go and check this, and then we'll take a look at it and see what we're doing, or else we'll machine some more off. All right, well, everything actually looks really good. I think I'm going to leave it right there. Other than I'm going to take a light skim cut off just to clean up this surface, and I had a steel insert before that was a well-used steel insert. That's why we've got a little bit of ragged edge there. We just went back and put a fresh aluminum insert in there, and we'll run along here and hopefully clean this up nice and pretty, even though it doesn't matter. Most of this is going to get hand finished out and then painted. So let's just face it off real quick. Let's go down, see if this cleans it up. Except we better get it up here where it'll run. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. We'll run with that. I'm thinking while I'm right here, well, no, that's not going to work. I believe it's a 20-degree taper that goes in there. I don't have a real good way to hold that in the mill, and I don't believe I've got a 20-degree cutter, 40-degree cutter to go down in there. So I think we'll wait and we'll cut those in the lathe. We'll just have to set them up on a mandrel and do something that way. Anyway, we'll get there. I think I'm happy with this now. Let's take a look at it and see what we've got here. Now we've taken away an awful lot of that boss. So we've taken away a lot of this boss on the back side, but we don't need that much boss. We've got plenty there, I think. I think. So this will all get hand finished on around. It'll probably get relieved here in the back a little bit. So next thing for this, I think, will be to set it up vertically. We'll bore this hole. We're back to the same thing. We're going to have to taper this, so we'll have to fixture it on the lathe. But we can drill that through, and then we've got our 2-inch radius to cut here. So let's look at that real quick. And I think depending on where from center there, well, that's going to take away about half of this. Then this gets relieved on the outside. So we're taking away a lot of material here, but I think that's going to be okay. It'll finish out, I think, quite nicely. All right, well, while we're still here and in the neighborhood and got such a mess here, we're going to go ahead and bore our hole for the tilting lever. And we're going to, and I've already got it leveled up as best I can. There again, we're working with castings. We're going to bore this out. So it's a fairly stiff sliding fit on that bushing right there, because that's what it's going to ride on, is that outer bushing. So we might as well just fit it up accordingly. We'll set that as our 00 on the digital readout, and we're just going to very carefully work this up. This is not a super secure setup here. We've got it set on a set of parallels and set up on the edges there. So we'll go ahead, get it opened up as far as we can with drill bits, and then we'll go to the boring head. Okay, now this is one of those do as I say and not as I do type of things, because you're never supposed to take your chuckless, keyless chucks and use a bit larger than the capacity that they're rated for. But of course, me and my ultimate wisdom, we're not going to follow those rules. And this is aluminum, so it's not super, super tough. So hopefully we're not going to have an issue. Okay. And we're just going to hog material out of here until we get past this casting boss, and then we'll start doing measurements. This is a homemade bar, carbide tipped bar that's in here. And unfortunately, when I built this several years ago, well, I screwed up, and I've got it set actually backwards. So to bore with this particular bar, we're doing it in reverse, and it's just something that I haven't bothered to upgrade. So I've still been making do with what I got. I'll probably have to reset this again because there's probably not enough travel the way it's situated right now to make it all the way out to bore diameter. One 628 is the 1628 to 1629 is what we're after.
This Friday the 14th, savor the warmth of the season at Provisions Restaurant and Market with their new winter menu. Indulgent pastas, steaks, seafood, and more. Plus gluten-free and vegan options for every diner. Explore Provisions and Market for prepared meals, gifts, and all the treasures to complete your experience. This Friday, get a $25 gift card to Provisions Restaurant and Market
1607 that way.
ZipRecruiter makes finding quality people look breeze. ZipRecruiter's advanced technology identifies candidates with the right skills, sends you great matches, and you can easily invite them to apply. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself. Go to
Yeah, that's fairly consistent.
ZipRecruiter.com/free to try ZipRecruiter for free.
Be happy with that.
ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Anyway, here's our fit on our bushing. And I was concerned about that, but that will be just fine. That's going to be our tilting bracket. This will be inside our boss, so ultimately this will set like that. That there. That will be inside. That'll be our tilting bracket for it. I think we'll measure it out. We'll probably put a split cotter in here. And then, of course, we've got the dust cap that will go on this end. Anyway, I think that's about all we're going to do today. Hopefully you find something a little bit useful there. Comment suggestions, guys, leave them in the comment section for me below. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.